Okay, so we're live. Hey everyone, thank you very much for being here. I'm John, and I'm sorry, actually, it's just a little tricky. I was hoping to do a little demo for you, but I actually have a little table just at the top of the stairs, and just to show you what it's like to use a keyboard and the touchscreen all at the same time. So really, that's what I want to talk about a little bit, is some of these hybrids, and we'll just tell you a little more. So here's the scoop. First of all, me and a little brilliant experience. We do really three things. One is to really understand your audience. So I'm just, okay, so just raise your hand if you're a left-handed Canadian PhD. Anyone? Okay. All right, okay, hey. All right, nicely done. Any other Canadians? Okay. Okay, you got to practice that, okay? You don't do it at the right time. I'll teach you. So yeah, I really want to understand an audience. I want to help you with the, what might the solution be, and secondly, to do some of the early prototyping. Then I partner with other developers. Right now I'm working with 10 Pros, is a good example, to make things come to life. So anyway, that's us. That's enough for the story. That's all the pitch I'll give you for today. So what I wanted to talk about really is just really, it was actually very nicely introduced in the first presentation by the Microsoft team about the fact that there are all these hybrids coming. And I just want to show you some of the complexity of what we have to think about as UX people now coming up. And I'm sorry, I'd love to let you try this out when we're done. I was going to try and get someone to do it live, but we're running out of plugs and stuff. Okay, so really I wanted to talk about that, so what in UX is changing, and then lastly I wanted to just give you a little sense of what are the top things I want you to come away with to think about here. Because really there's very little research on this so far, so I wanted to give you a little feeling for what we're seeing. So first of all, with the Apple group, everything's very happy, right? We got the things that you can type with on the right, you got things you can touch with on the left, and everything's simple, right? And in fact, I also won't play this one for you, but really there's a nice clip from Steve Jobs saying that, and there's a reason, we naturally would think, why don't you put touch on a screen, but, it's no good, okay? No, we're not doing that, okay? Anyway, so other people have decided, yeah, we are. So I just want to show you a little bit of what's happening with that. So let's see if I can skip ahead. Beautiful. Okay. So the next problem was that with everyone who wants to do things with iPads, how many of you have a keyboard for your iPad? So 1, 2, sorry, it's a little hard to see. Okay, so a good 3 of you have a keyboard for one of these guys. So there's that, right? So the question is, when do you touch, when do you do a keyboard? Then it gets a little more complicated. This is what this is. So this is an Asus, it's a tablet transformer tablet. So actually, do any of you have that kind of thing? So, okay, good. Then, yeah, I want you to try it out. So it really is where, you've got your tablet, and then it connects up to your little screen, to your keyboard. So the question is, when do you use each? And then, obviously you saw the Surface is coming, and then you also know that, these different Ultrabooks. This is an Asus Ultrabook here, and then we keep going, right? So then there's all kinds of Ultrabooks. So actually, how many of you have tried to use one of these yet? Have you had a chance? Okay, exactly what I wanted to get you out in front here. So people aren't really aware of how people are using these things. There's a little teeny bit of research, so I'm trying to give you a little bit here today. So in advance of all these things coming out here and out in mid-October. Cool. So let me just show you some examples of just what we're seeing. And some of this isn't as elegant as what Josh was presenting, as we're back on baby steps and just learning. Literally, when you drop this in front of someone, actually the toddler test was a wonderful one. So I've hit people who are more than 80 and people who are under 6, and just to see what the range is, and actually it's pretty consistent across them. So the first thing, I've just got these looping, actually, these little videos, just so you can see. So not a radical interaction here, but the key point is that with forms and stuff, people are thinking rather than using their keyboard, their trackpad, or their mouse, there are a lot of people, a majority, that all of a sudden, although they were used to not doing anything else, will click to get into a field, right? So they're just thinking that they're going to use touch for that kind of thing. And by the way, this is someone who, this is their first experience with this thing, right? So we've seen some people who have used these for a little while, but the majority are brand new and they're using it a surprising amount. That's the one interesting thing. Okay. The other thing I've got here is just, it's not a rocket science. We know how to use an iPad. We know how to scroll. But the key thing is that, they're not using anything like page up, page down. They're not using anything like a roller on their mouse. They're not using their 2 fingers in their tablet. They're grabbing the screen and moving the screen up and down, right? Makes sense. Okay. Now, another thing to note with this person, so just take a look at this person's hand. So what are they doing with their hands? Just tell me what you're seeing.
It's on the left and right side.
Okay, so they're using just the left and right sides. Okay. What else?
They don't need to.
Okay, yeah, they tend to kind of grab the thing. Now, this Asus transformer tablet, this thing's pretty new. They're sort of experimenting, and they didn't quite get it right here. So the problem with this one is you touch it and see it's tipping. So anyway, so it's not perfect that way. So I'm going to move it so I don't step on it. However, so the key part, the other thing I'm seeing here is what fingers they're using. Index and thumb. Okay, good. Okay, and not shockingly, to select something, they're also using this. So I'm thinking about forms as well. So when people have drop downs, when people have radio buttons, they're trying to use their fingers to do this stuff. So and keep in mind also, so this is a full-size screen, right? And so we've also got that kind of challenge. Okay. So this is my favorite guy here, Mr. Thumbs. So he's been using this for a little while. And one of the things that Steve Jobs said was that, hey, if you're reaching out to do stuff, eventually your arm gets tired coming out of here, doing all this stuff. So eventually you just, lose energy. And so this guy has a fascinating technique that no one else has ever reproduced, but his thumbs part is, and he's someone who's used this a little bit more. And we do find that people start to grab the screen in part, I think, just to rest your arms, to use your thumbs. But I just wanted you to be aware that there are sort of 2 distinct patterns that people are using. They're either touching in the center in the high parts, or they're using their thumbs, just a little bit down lower, a little bit like this guy is. So we've got Mr. Thumbs, we've got selecting, we've got getting into a form field, stuff like that people are doing. Okay, any questions at this point? It's okay. It's not too hard. And just to give you a sense of what is out there, I apologize, it's a little bit imposing giant face staring at you. This is one of the people from Intel who did some of the first research on, how will people use this stuff. And so you might not be surprised. Okay, so what does Intel want to do? They want to sell you a whole bunch of computers, right? So it wouldn't be really, really shocking if they came out and said, people love this, my Ultrabooks idea, it's a great one. So this is one reason for someone who doesn't have a stake in it to do a little bit of research as well to see if we're finding the same kind of things. Okay, but anyway, her research is out there, and I'll have links to that I'll obviously post this too, so you can get this. But one of the interesting things was this. So, she had to do it in a Metro style graphic, right? But the key point is that people were using touch a lot of the time when they were first introduced to this, and even later on. And we were finding something very similar at Brilliant Experience. So, so the bottom line here. So, how many of you have some web app you've done, or something that's actually for that matter, just an app or a web app? Let's just stop there. You guys doing that stuff? Yeah. So anything you're doing like that, this is a big ramification, because we're going to have 40 of these different touchscreen UltraPads coming out. You've already got this thing here that's for sale, and lots of others. And so you're going to have to be ready and say, okay, with that app, how are people going to mangle what used to be wonderful, because I had either a trackpad that's very precise or a mouse that's very precise, instead of using this giant finger. And some poor guy who's a football player or basketball player with an enormous finger, it's got a big, messy touch. And so just to give you a sense, people really naturally went back and forth, right? So they were typing away, and then they just finished typing and reach over and hit submit, or they reach over and page up. So it was a very natural, they tended not to, even with a form, I was surprised at how few times people would hit tab when historically they would have. And so now what they're doing is they're really using this a lot to just literally reach out and touch it. And so actually, I don't know if you guys are like this too, but my mom has a screen that absolutely is not touched, but nonetheless she's still banging away on it, right? And so it is a very natural kind of interface. And so I think it makes sense that this was something that was, quickly sort of quick uptake. So just to give you a sense here, these people said, it feels a little more connected, or I like the feel of it, or it just feels more natural, I don't have to think as much. So to Josh's point, it just feels a little bit more natural in the right context. And it's things like selecting, moving things around. and making choices, those kinds of pieces. So you're going to have to take a step back and think about your apps and how they apply to this. So this is just one more example here. Let's see if it's going. Yeah, so this is someone on, I don't know, have any of you worked for Marriott? So I tried this with a couple of different, Marriott, Discovery, a couple of groups who are local. We don't have much time here today, but in this case, I just wanted to show you this person trying to figure out how to use, just to book a hotel room, right? So you can see how small that little calendar is, and they were just trying to touch to get these things. Just before that, they had a city and state that were right next to each other. I don't know if you noticed, but they actually selected state when they were trying to select the box for city. So there are things like that just are everyday interfaces of really high use that are going to be a big, a serious challenge for everyone to learn. And so what we have to do is go back and look as designers at the interface and see what are the things that we're going to have to correct to make this better, to make it more usable for this group. So it is a big change that a lot of our interfaces are going to do, and it's going to be any application you've got is going to be potentially touch now, where historically you had responsive design or other things, you were okay unless it was in that smaller format. Not anymore. So there you go. And then I guess, the last thing is just, what are the things you need to know to go ahead? Okay, I'm telling you to make some changes. What are the things you should really think about in terms of what those changes are? So one of them is just the closer these things are together, the more likely the error. So you can see the curve here. There actually is a nice source from, I don't know if you guys know Luke, I'll mangle his last name a little bit, Rulinski, but anyway, he did great. LukeW.com is a great resource. So he did a little article basically based on some of the Intel research that was done and other historical precedents that just after you get within 5 millimeters, you're making all sorts of mistakes on what you're selecting. So just to give you a sense of what this looks like, so the one on the right is a little more touch optimized, the one on the left is not. So we just have to go back and say, have I actually got these things in that kind of format? Okay. And the other thing to think about is this one that I don't have like one good solution for you at this point, but the question is how should we go about making the selections on an app or on a website appropriate? So in this case here, you're either seeing that people are doing, you remember Mr. Thumbs? So Mr. Thumbs is either getting things down low, and we actually saw some people who would hold it a little higher too, like they were afraid the thing would tip over almost, like I was just showing you. So this might be a little different than what we're finding. We're finding basically we are going to the extreme, obviously the extreme left and right because their thumbs only reach in so far. And when they're touching, it really does tend to be the sort of center top where they want controls. And so with some of the Windows format, the new Windows 8, you can slide things in around there, and it makes sense. They did that intentionally watching this kind of behavior. But all of our apps right now aren't thinking that way, whether it's a web app or just a regular old app. So, and we just want to make it consistent when we're going back to responsive design for any kind of system, whether it's a tablet or it's a website and so on. Okay. So just to give you a sense too, here we've got, Wufu, and basically we've got more or less the identical interface here, and it's going to work out okay if they really focus on it and have enough spacing between it. But when you're thinking about responsive design, just start to think, we used to say, oh, we got it all set up because our local mobile thing, we really got it good. But, and then, we've got lots of proper spacing and so on, and on a regular site we don't. Well, because we got more precise things, but in this case you really, you need to think about that for all of them. So really the bottom line here is just that, these Ultrabooks are coming, so we need to get ready for this new kind of thinking about how should I use things for Mr. Thumbs, how should I do things for all the touching that people are doing in forms. I guess the other thing is just that we were really surprised at how, we told people this thing is capable of touch. We didn't touch the thing once, right? And they just dove right in and just first try, we're using it. The people we'd seen who have done this for a little while continue to use it. So it is something you've got to get ready for. It's not like it's just a fun feature for this freaky little, tablet transformer thing. It's really going to be something that everyone is going to be using that you know. And so I guess the other thing is just that, those new interaction designs we have to think about for this kind of system, both from a web app, from a just a traditional app, and then also a mobile app. So anything you've been learning about mobile, the good news is it extends to everything you're doing, and we've got to rethink all those traditional apps to accommodate this kind of change. So anyway, it's kind of fun, new stuff. And I wanted to just give you a quick sense of what some of the things are that you got to think about. So thank you very much. That's it. I'll make sure I put this on our little brilliantexperience.com. And yeah, maybe I can have some of those